Hello, everybody, and good evening, and welcome to one more session on live classes on psychology. Today, we are going to be talking about the third part of our series on learning and conditioning. It is also going to be the concluding part of our series on learning and conditioning. For all those who are joining us today for the first time, let me talk a little about myself. I'm Dr. Zarin Sethna. I'm a clinical psychologist and associate professor of psychology for the last 33 years. I'm going live with every week we go live with different topics on from the syllabus on psychology, mainly so that we can reach out to a very large number of students. So far, we have covered areas like various careers in psychology. We have covered memory and different theories of memory. And then we did a three-part series on learning. Like I said earlier, today is the concluding part on our series on learning. So without wasting much time, let's go down to the topic of the day today. Yeah. So today we will be talking about cognitive learning, and we will be talking about different types of cognitive learning. Once again, like the last two episodes on learning, we will begin our session with the definition of learning and what we have covered so far. So, learning is defined as a relatively permanent change in behavior due to practice or experience. I've already covered this definition twice in the earlier two parts, but once again, learning simply means that either because of too many experiences or too much of practice of particular behavior or experience, we have learned a new behavior. And how do you know that the behavior is learned? You know that the behavior is learned because there is some change. Something has changed, either physically or mentally or emotionally. Okay, so there has to be a change in behavior, and that change comes because you have practiced or because of some experience. It is believed that once you learn a behavior, it is relatively, approximately, more or less permanent. It remains with you forever. Okay. Now, we have already covered two types of conditioning. Classical conditioning, which is based on association. Students of psychology will recall that classical conditioning is where we spoke about Ivan Pavlov and his famous experiments with dog and various aspects of classical conditioning. This was our part one in the series of learning. In part two, we had spoken about operant conditioning, which is based on reinforcement. Reinforcement meaning the reaction that you get from the opposite side. And in very simple words, we had seen that operant conditioning is based on rewards and punishment. When you are rewarded for a particular behavior, the behavior repeats. When you are punished for a particular behavior, the behavior weakens and stops. So these two conditioning we have already done. Those who were not able to join us for these part 1 and part 2, the sessions are available. The recording of the sessions are available on the YouTube. So you might go back there to revise. Today, we will be talking about the third type of learning called cognitive learning. Okay. Now, the word cognitive itself means anything dealing with mental processes. Okay. Any activity, any behavior which is based on your thinking, which is based on your mental processes, is known as cognitive behavior. So, cognitive behavior deals with thinking, remembering, forgetting, daydreaming, imagination, decision making, problem solving. Okay, all these are cognitive processes because this is something you do in your head. Cognitive learning is any learning which cannot directly be observed, unlike operant or association, unlike operant conditioning or classical conditioning. Cognitive learning is something which is happening within ourselves very silently and many times unconsciously. Okay. Another big difference is that when you're talking about classical conditioning, It is based on association. Two things are always coming together, so you learn one because of another. Operant conditioning, based on what you are getting in return. Are you getting rewards or are you getting punishment? So in both these type of conditioning, what was happening was, learning was happening due to external factors. Something is happening outside, and that is how you're learning a behavior. Okay, I repeat again, in classical conditioning and operant conditioning, learning is happening because of external factors. But cognitive learning is based on internal factors. And like I said, a lot many times, unconscious process. You are not even aware that right now you're learning something. Okay. Now, cognitive learning, like I told you, is based on mental processes, and therefore it is largely based on understanding, reasoning, and problem solving. Okay, you have to understand what is happening. You have to understand a particular event or a situation, okay, or a behavior. There has to be reasoning. You are dealing with that information. You're wondering what it is, and probably there is some amount of problem solving also. Now, because cognitive learning is based on mental processes, you see a lot of cognitive learning obviously in human beings, because we have one of the most developed, most advanced brain structures. Our brain is most advanced, most developed, and therefore a lot of cognitive learning is seen in human beings. But besides human beings, also apes like chimpanzees, they also have a very advanced brain structure, and therefore we see a lot of cognitive learning happening in chimps. We will talk about this a little later as we move ahead. Some amount of cognitive learning also happens with smaller animals like dogs or cats. Okay, but it is extremely difficult to have cognitive learning in animals whose brains are still very, very primitive and not yet fully developed. Okay, so cognitive learning is not something that you will see across entire animal kingdom. It is mostly visible in animals and species where the brain is very, very developed. Now, there are actually many types of cognitive learning. Okay, we are going to be talking only about three. So, why is it that we are only talking about three types of cognitive learning if there are many types? There are two reasons for it. One, even though there may be many types of cognitive learning, many of them overlap each other. Okay, they are very similar to each other and they overlap each other. So, you can actually combine them all into three major types. Also, we are talking about these three types from syllabus point of view. Um, um, Please remember, this series is largely going to help students who are students of psychology, and our series is largely based on syllabus, although it is going to be equally interesting and informative for anybody, irrespective of whether you are a student or not. So, three major types of cognitive learning that which are largely discussed are what we call as observational learning, latent learning, and insight learning. Okay, so we are mainly talking about these three types of learning. We start with one very, very, very important person, Albert Bandura. Irrespective of whether you are a student of psychology or not, I'm sure most people have heard about this amazing scholar, Albert Bandura. Look at his lifetime, 1925 to 1921. So actually he belongs to our time. We lost him just a few years ago. Okay, till 5 years ago, he was with us. We belong to his lifetime. Albert Bandura was a Canadian American psychologist, professor of psychology at Stanford University, and he is largely responsible for giving us what we call as social learning theory, also social cognitive theory, and observational learning, one of the types of learnings that we are going to talk about today. Albert Bandura is considered to be the first person to have more than 1 million Google Scholar citation. Now, for if you are a research scholar, then you know what I'm talking about. When you do research, you publish your research. Okay, research papers are published in research journals. There are books, research journals, which publish research. Okay. Now, one person is going to do research and publish it. That same research paper is going to be read by many people, and many people are going to be impressed by it, and many people will mention your paper in their own paper, so this was cited. We call this citation. Citation is when I mention somebody else in my research paper. Okay. Albert Bandura has done so much of research, and he has published so many research papers that he is the most cited Google scholar. That's a huge achievement in the field of research. Why I'm telling you all this is because he is the man who gave us observational learning. He is the man who gave us a theory of social learning. Okay. Now, in very simple words, what does social learning theory say? Social learning theory, in very simple words, says that when human beings are born, we are born with absolutely no learning. Okay, we are born with no knowledge, no information about the world around us. Almost every behavior that we show, it is learned, and it is learned from society, people around us. Okay. And that is why his theory is known as social learning theory. Later on, he modified it into social cognitive theory, because he said that we are not just machines. I see something and I learn. I'm not a machine. I also have a brain. I think. I can decide what is right for me and wrong for me. I can decide what I want, what I don't want, what I like, what I don't like, what I can do and what I cannot do. Okay, so all those decisions are mine. I'm a thinking person. I'm not a machine. And that is why he said, we observe things around us, then we think, we take a decision, and then we learn. Okay, so these are some of the very important concepts given to us by Albert Bandura. I will explain this diagram that you're seeing over here in a bit, but let's talk about observational learning. Now, observational learning is also known as learning by imitation or learning by modeling. Now, when I use the word modeling, I know that the first image that comes into your mind is probably a model walking on a ramp. Okay, ramp walking. We are not talking about fashion modeling over here. That is fashion modeling, when a model is walking on the ramp. Okay, we are not talking about fashion modeling. In psychology, when we are talking about observational learning or imitation learning, we are talking about following a role model. You see somebody and then you start imitating certain behaviors. It is that type of modeling that we are talking. Please keep that in mind. Okay. Now, what exactly is this observational learning? Bandura and other scholars said that when we observe the world around us, when we observe people around us, we don't realize, mostly consciously and mostly unconsciously also, we are learning and we are imbibing certain things from them. But for observational learning to be successful, for observational learning to take place, you need at least 4 factors. Okay? Attention, retention, replication, and motivation. Now, what is all this? If I want to learn a behavior from somebody, most important is I pay attention. I have to observe that person, and to observe that person, I have to pay attention to what he or she is doing, right? I have to pay attention to that particular behavior. So attention becomes important. Not just paying attention and observing what he or she is doing, retention. I have to remember, retain. I have to remember and store that information. Because what I see today, I'm not going to copy today. I'm probably going to use this behavior and information days later, months later. So whatever I see, I have to remember it in my head. I have to store that information, retention. Later on, after a few days, after a few months, maybe years, when I'm going to copy that behavior, what am I doing? Copy, replicate, replication. Replication is simply imitating that behavior. Okay. And most important, I need to be motivated. Okay, I'm walking on the road. I see hundreds of people around me. Sometimes I also pay attention to a lot of them. I also remember certain people when I come back home. But I'm not going to sit and copy everybody's behavior if I'm not interested in it. Okay, just because I see and remember doesn't mean I become them. I have to feel the need to show that same behavior which I saw earlier. Let me give you an example. Suppose you take a small child to a doctor. Okay, now the child is very small, maybe say 3 years old, 4 years old, very tiny child. This child is barely able to understand anything. Okay, now the child is not well, you take the child to the doctor. The doctor is going to use stethoscope, putting the stethoscope on the chest of the child. The doctor is going to ask the child to come on, beta, cough, show me your tongue, show me your eyes. Okay, all that is going to happen, right? Now the child is brought back home. You'll be surprised, after a day or two, when the child feels better and starts playing, the child will sometimes actually imitate, show that behavior. So the child will try to put an imaginary stethoscope in the ear. The child will put that imaginary stethoscope on the chest of its doll or its teddy bear and talk to the teddy bear, talk to the toy and say, come on, cough, cough, cough. This is observational learning. The child observed the behavior of the doctor, paid attention to what he or she was doing, remembered certain things, and now replicating it. Okay, showing that same behavior after a few days. This was a very simple example of observational learning. Now, this tiny photograph that you see of a Bobo doll, this Bobo doll experiment is one of the most popular experiments conducted by Albert Bandura, and it has far-reaching effects in social sciences. So what in very simple words, in very, very simple terms, what is this Bobo doll experiment all about? So what Bandura did was, Bandura collected small children, okay, or different age groups, but they were all children, okay, and they were divided into two separate groups, kept in two separate rooms, all right. Now in both the rooms, there were these Bobo dolls. You know what a Bobo doll is? It's a large toy which shakes, when you touch it, it shakes, okay. Now, so these Bobo dolls, so there are two separate rooms. There are children in both the rooms and there are these large Bobo dolls in both the rooms, okay. Now, in room number 1, there is one adult who comes and plays very lovingly with that doll. Okay, so look at the first part of the diagram, okay, the photograph. So very lovingly that adult is loving it and cuddling and that talking very kindly and talking very politely, and there is a peaceful, loving, kindness kind of a atmosphere in that room. And children are only seeing that, okay, children are playing around, but they are also seeing what is happening, okay. In room number 2, in the second room, you have same Bobo doll. Another adult comes over there, but now the adult is behaving very badly, very rudely, very violently with that doll. So the adult is talking very rudely with that doll. The adult is punching the doll, kicking the doll, pushing the doll, showing a lot of violence. Okay, so you have two separate rooms, two different groups of children. In one room, the adult is behaving with a lot of love and kindness. In another room, the adult is behaving with a lot of violence and rudeness. Okay. After that, the children were sent home. Research showed later on that children who were in room number 1, when they went back home, they all played very lovingly with their toys, whatever the toy was, whether it was a rabbit, whether it was a baby elephant, whether it was a baby doll, anything. But they showed a lot of love and care and hugging and, kissing, and they were talking politely and, all a lovely, beautiful behavior they showed with their toys. Children who were in room number 2, they went back home and they showed violent behavior. They kicked their toys, they tore open their toys, they talked rudely with their toys, they were banging their toys, pushing their toys. Okay. Now remember, the child was not told to do this. Bandura did not come and nobody told the child that this is what you're supposed to do. They only saw something. Okay, it was observation. Children were only observing what is happening. And without realizing, very unconsciously, they had learned. They had learned this behavior. So children who saw loving behavior learned loving behavior. Children who saw violent and cruel behavior learned violent and cruel behavior. And this became very famous as the Bandura's Bobo doll experiment. Now, this was the first time that we were scientifically proving that what you see, you learn, especially in childhood, especially in childhood. And this is why later on we had lot of research on what kind of content small children should see on TV and in films. You know, should we allow children to see violence in films and on TV? Should we allow children to see a film which is talking about murder and kicking and pushing? You know, because now we know that whatever children see, they learn. They learn. And that is why governments all over the world then started becoming very strict and policies started coming up about, adult content and content made for children. And then you have this parent lock system where parents will decide what channels children will watch and what they will not watch. It all started from here because we learned and we proved that children will definitely learn what they see on screen. Okay, so this is observational learning. We are still going to talk a little more about observational learning. Now, like I said, when you are observing, you are learning. Sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. I'll give you an example of both. Now, consciously, like for example, if I'm sitting in school, okay, I'm sure it must have happened to all of you all during your school time. Okay, you see your friend, your classmate in school who has a very typical kind of a handwriting, and you're impressed by that handwriting. Oh, this is a very beautiful way to write. So you come home and you practice. You take a conscious decision. You say, oh, even I want this kind of handwriting. So you start practicing that kind of handwriting. Or you see somebody's signature. You see somebody who is signing, and after signing their name, they make a line below their name and put 2 dots. And you're happy with that. You're impressed with that style. And you start doing it. You start writing your name, put a line across below it, and then put 2 dots. Okay. Now, these are all conscious decisions. You see somebody wearing a beautiful dress and you are impressed by that pattern. And then you go back home and you tell your tailor, this is the pattern I want. Okay. You see somebody's haircut and you want that. And you tell your parlor person to give you that same haircut. These are all examples of conscious observational learning. You're seeing something, you are telling yourself, oh, this is what I want, I like it, and you are taking a conscious decision to do it. But a large part of observational learning is unconscious. You don't even know when you saw from the back of your, from the corner of your eye, you saw something, but you didn't realize that it impressed you so much, you actually imbibe it. Okay. Now, when you are imitating someone's behavior, that person is known as a model, or what we call as role model. That is why I've put it in the brackets. So a role model or simply a model. A model is a person whose behavior you are going to observe and imitate, replicate. Okay. Now, what are some of the characteristics of a model? Okay, who becomes a role model? Usually, a role model is a person you love and admire and respect. Naturally. Why will I copy the behavior of a person I don't like or I don't respect? Okay. So usually somebody you love and somebody you admire, you look up to that person and you respect that person. Then you start copying that person's behavior. Who are the people we love and admire and respect? Mostly parents, teachers, some relatives maybe, sometimes our neighbors, sometimes, your family physician, your family doctor, your family lawyer, okay, sometimes neighbors, even friends, okay. So it could be people around us, but usually they are the people you know them, okay. They are also, your model is also someone who has inspired you. This model is inspiring, okay. There is something they are doing which makes you feel, wow, how lovely. Okay, in some way. Okay, their cooking has inspired you, their fashion sense has inspired you, their language style has inspired you, their thinking has inspired you, their creativity has something about them is inspiring you. Usually they are elders, but not necessarily. Okay, not necessarily. On rare occasions, even a person younger to you or of your same age can be your role model. Your own classmate who is studying in your same class can be your role model. Okay, and on some rare occasions, even a person who is younger to you can teach you so much. Okay, they can also be your role model. But usually it's a person who is elder. Okay, very important. Your role model could be a living person. It could be a person who is dead long ago. Mahatma Gandhi is still a role model for so many people all over the world. He died so many years ago. Okay. Religious leaders who died hundreds and thousands of years ago, we still follow what they told us. They are our role models. Okay. So people, Albert Einstein, Newton, Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, some businessmen, some politicians, some sports people, all these people who are long dead and gone, some film stars, people still copy their style. People still are inspired by their courage. People are still inspired by the way they live their life, and we model them. Okay. So it's not necessary that your role model should belong to the present time. He or she could belong to any period of history. Another important and interesting fact: it is absolutely not necessary that your role model should be a real human being. It could be a fantasy character. Superman is a fantasy character, but for a lot of children, Superman is a role model. Okay, Sherlock Holmes is a fantasy character, but for a lot of people, Sherlock Holmes is a role model. Okay, so there are so many such fantasy character. Phantom, okay, Spider-Man, all these are fantasy. Cinderella, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, all fantasy characters, not real. But they are role model for children world around, even for adults world around. Okay, so it is absolutely not necessary that your role model should be a real person. It could be even a fantasy character created by some author, but you were impressed by the character, you were impressed by the way that character lived, and you want to copy certain characteristics. Also, we are never going to have one role model in our life. Never, ever. We are going to have multiple role models. Okay. It's never going to happen that one person inspired you so much that 100% you copied everything from that person. No, never, never. Okay. Sometimes we copy fashion sense from one person, handwriting style from another person, hairstyle from another person, thinking patterns from one person, the art of forgiving from another person, to be kind and polite from another person. So we are going to copy many different behaviors from many different people. We all have multiple role models. Also, role models keep changing. In your childhood, you had different role models. In your adulthood, your models will change. Now you are inspired by other things. Okay. In your middle age and in your old age, again, your role model will change. Because at different ages in life, we become different people. What inspired me when I was 5 years old will not inspire me when I'm 55 years old. Okay. So role models will keep changing. Also, it is very possible that today somebody inspired me greatly and that person became my role model. But after 5 years, 10 years, I realized, oh my God, that person was absolutely ordinary. And that in fact, that person was a crook. That person was a criminal. I misjudged, I misunderstood, and I was inspired. It is very possible that you make a mistake while, observing and understanding. And you change your role model. Whatever you learn from that person, now you want to unlearn. Okay, that is also possible. And when we talk of observational learning, we are not just going to learn all the wonderful, lovely things. We are also going to learn things which are unpleasant, undesirable. Like I said earlier, Mahatma Gandhi is a role model for millions of people around the world. but so is Adolf Hitler, right? Even Hitler is a role model for so many people. Although, see what he did. So basically, when you're talking about observational learning or imitation, we are only talking about copying behavior. What type of behavior we are not talking about. You learn good behavior, you learn bad behavior. You learn positive behavior, you learn negative behavior. You learn legal behavior, you also learn illegal behavior. You learn moral behavior, you also learn immoral behavior. Okay, so it could be any behavior, good or bad. And your role model also could be some saint, it could be a criminal, anybody. Okay, it depends on you. Now, what you see over here, this small tiny diagram, just different, more or less the same thing that we have spoken about, but some extra. So, these are the characteristics of a role model, okay? They generally influence you, affect you. They have a leadership role, a mentorship role. You know, they generally have some integrity. You know, they are exemplary behavior. They are extraordinary in certain areas. So, these are just some of the characteristics, exactly what we have spoken about. Nothing different, okay? But later on, when you come back to the video, this will help you as a ready reckoner. Now, what behaviors do we learn from models? You could learn any of the physical behaviors. All the examples which I've been giving just now, you know, walking style, accent, language, accent, handwriting, your, like I said, your fashion style, your haircut, okay, how to sit, how to talk to people, how to be courageous, how to feel shy, how to show anger. These are all physical behaviors. We learn physical behaviors from people around us. We also learn value systems, and that is more important. Your belief, what you believe is right or wrong, what you believe is correct and not correct behavior. Okay, so we definitely learn values. We learn emotional reactions. Like I said, how to express emotions, how to show anger without hurting another person, how to show politeness so that the other person feels good, how to compliment or how to receive compliment. Okay, these are all emotional reactions. We learn that from people. Cultural aspects. Different cultures have different rituals, different ceremonies. Okay, if you're growing up in India, you will learn to eat food with your 5 fingers. But if you're growing up in Europe, you will probably learn to eat with fork and spoon. If you're growing up in an Eastern country like, say, China or Japan, you will learn to eat with chopsticks. It's cultural. Your culture taught you. Okay. Your culture will teach you what language. Because I grew up in Mumbai, I can speak English and Hindi and Marathi very well. But if I had grown up in Japan, I would be speaking Japanese. If I had grown up in Germany, I would be speaking German. Okay. So language is what my culture teaches you. The type of films you admire. Indian films have a lot of song and dance, and I want that. I've grown up on that. But a lot of European films, if you see, they don't really have the song and dance routine. So your culture teaches you so many things. Okay, we learn from people around us, various rituals, the way you do your ceremonies, the way the wedding ceremonies and the death ceremonies and festivals, etc. And of course, like I said earlier, we also learn inappropriate behavior. Spitting on the road is inappropriate. It's not the right thing to do. But suppose you see everybody around you spitting on the road, then you don't feel too bad. And then you also, like you start doing it. Oh, everybody's doing it. Okay. After eating something, throwing that wrapper on the road is not right. It's an inappropriate behavior. But if I see that everybody around me is doing it, then you will probably learn and you will also do the same thing. Oh, 5 people have done it. I'm also going to do it. Okay. So we are also going to learn something which is not desirable, not appropriate. Okay. So this is about observational behavior. Now we are coming to another very important man, Edward Tolman. Edward Tolman gave us another very important type of learning called latent learning. Okay. Edward Tolman is an American psychologist, professor at the University of California. He gave us something very important. One is latent learning and second is purposive behavior. Now, what exactly do you mean by latent learning? Latent learning, latent word means hidden. Okay, the word latent means something which remains hidden. Latent learning means that you have learned something today, but that knowledge, that information remains hidden. Okay, you're not directly showing it. It is not seen in your behavior immediately, but it will be seen sometime in future. Okay. Purposive behavior coming from the word purpose. Okay. Purpose means having a goal. I know that this is my goal and my entire behavior is directed towards that goal. For example, right now I'm sitting in my house. But suppose I have to catch a train and go somewhere. I know my goal. My goal is I have to reach the station, railway station, because I have to catch a train. So I know my purpose. I know my goal. Now what will I do? One, I will have to get dressed because I'm going out of my house. And then I will take a road, the route which will take me towards station. I know this is the only road which goes from my house to my station. So I will follow that map and I will reach the station. So it is a goal directed behavior. You have a clear goal in front of you. You have a clear purpose in front of you. And then you simply follow that purpose. Okay. Now, how are these two connected? Latent learning and purposive behavior. We will see in a while. Now, as usual, let's talk about the definition first. So, latent learning is learning where knowledge is acquired but not demonstrated immediately. Now, please don't be scared by this all big, large sounding words. The words are very simple. So, what is happening? Knowledge, you're learning something, right? So, knowledge is acquired. You are learning something. You're learning something from somewhere, but it is not demonstrated. To demonstrate means to show. Okay, I am actually showing it in my behavior. So knowledge is acquired. I am learning something, but I am not showing it in my behavior immediately. Right now, I am not showing it. Okay, so for example, again, I saw somebody signing in a very different style. I was impressed by it, but immediately I don't show it. Maybe I will copy that style after 5 years. Okay, something like that. Now, over here, what is happening is learning has happened, learning has taken place, but learning remains hidden till the need arises. Unless and until you need, you don't show that behavior at all. Okay, and cognitive mapping happens unconsciously. Now, what is this cognitive mapping? You know what a map is, right? A map is something that helps you to reach from point A to point B. Exactly the example which I gave you earlier. If I want to catch a train and go somewhere, I have a map in my head. My map tells me from my house, how should I reach railway station? That is the map which I have in my head. And because that map is there in my head, I call it cognitive, mental, cognitive mapping. And now I know I have to get out of my house. I have to come on the main street. I have to walk a little. After that, I take right. Then I go still further. I climb the bridge. I get the station. Okay. This is the map which I already have in my head. Okay. Cognitive mapping is something that you learn unconsciously. How do I know this? Why is it that every day I come out of my building, I don't have to ask people, hello, how do I go? Because I have done it hundreds of times. Okay. Every first time, maybe my parents took me when I was a child. Okay. Second time, third time, I didn't know. But after so many times of, going through that same route, unconsciously I memorized it. Not only do I know the road, I know every single detail of that road. I know exactly where a tree comes. I know exactly what shops will come on the road. I know exactly where the electric pole is, little bent, and I have to be little careful over there. I know every detail of that road. That is happening unconsciously. I have learned all this, acquired all this information unconsciously. Okay. Now, in latent learning, like I said, you are learning a skill, you are learning a behavior, but it remains with you. You are not really showing it immediately unless a need arises. Let me give you an example. Suppose you have learned swimming. Okay. Now, if you learn swimming, then you will probably swim. But that doesn't mean you're going to go swimming every day, right? You have learned it. You know the skill, you know how to remain afloat in water. But that doesn't mean you will swim every day. Maybe you will swim once a week or, maybe in vacations and so on and so forth. Then you grow up, you get busy with your life, and sometimes for a very, very long time, you don't get chance to swim. So maybe sometimes for 2-3 months, you have not gone in water, you have not been swimming at all. And maybe you tell yourself, once upon a time I learned swimming, now I don't know if I even remember it. And then maybe say after a year or so, you have gone on a family vacation and you'll have gone to some resort. And you're all sitting and enjoying over there, and then suddenly a child falls down in the swimming pool and is drowning. What will happen over here? Absolutely within a few seconds, you will dive into the water, save the child, and come out. This is a classic example of latent learning. You had the knowledge of swimming, but that knowledge had remained hidden inside your head for a very long time. You thought you had forgotten. You had not forgotten it. Today, you needed that knowledge. You had to save somebody's life. So that knowledge came rushing out. Okay. There was a mental map. You know exactly what to do. I have to dive into the water. I have to keep my head up so that I don't drown. I have to swim with these moves. So that entire action was there in your head. You used all that knowledge. You saved yourself and you also saved the child. Suppose in your school, they taught you lessons on first aid, on CPR. If somebody gets a heart attack, what are you supposed to do? Okay, they took these classes in your school. But everyday people around you are not going to get heart attack. Maybe after a 2 years, 3 years, you are traveling and somebody in the train starts showing symptoms of heart attack. After so many years, you will still remember because it's an emergency moment. Okay, immediately your memory will bring it out and you will be able to save that person's life. This is what Tolman talked about. This is what we call as latent learning. Remember the definition of learning? Learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior. What you learn once, most of the time, you never forget. And now we come to Wolfgang Köhler. As the name tells you, German. It's a very typical German name. Okay, the third and the last type of cognitive learning, Köhler. Köhler was a German psychologist, and Köhler, along with other German scholars, psychologists like Kafka, Werthermeer. If you're a student of psychology, then you must have heard all these names. All these people together founded a stream, a perspective of psychology called Gestalt psychology. Okay, I'm not going to talk about Gestalt psychology right now, but if you are a student of psychology, you must remember this word because it's a very, very important stream of psychology. Now, Köhler spoke about, again, Köhler also spoke about latent learning, but also insight learning, okay? And both of them are related. That is why we are talking about it over here. Okay, I'm going to check out the comments for some time in case you all have any problems. Better cognitive learning is reaching result with randomizing pattern. We may call it randomizing, but it is not actually randomized. It is quite organized in our head. You know, there is a cognitive map. We may call it as random behavior. It looks random. It looks random, but it is not really random. In our head, that cognitive mapping has already stayed. Okay. And the behavior that we are demonstrating is not random. It's a very well orchestrated behavior. Okay, but the learning was so unconscious that it looks random, right? Okay, coming back to Köhler and coming back to insight learning. Now, what exactly is insight learning? Insight learning is sudden and spontaneous realization of a solution to the problem. Okay, so there is some problem you are stuck on, and then you're trying very hard, you're working very hard on that problem, and you're just not able to solve that problem. And then suddenly you get an answer, like look at the second line. It is characterized by that aha moment or that eureka moment. Okay, I got the answer. A lot of y'all must have experienced this again in school while doing mathematics. Okay, sometimes some mathematical problem was very difficult. You spend hours on it. Okay, and you're just not able to solve that problem. And then maybe you get fed up and you start studying some other subject, or you just walk out of the house. And perhaps when you're walking on the road, suddenly the solution, hits you. Oh my God, I did not try this formula. I should have tried this formula. You come back home, you try the formula, and there, the sum is solved. Okay. Now, this is what we call as insight, a sudden answer appearing. We will talk about this suddenness. Where is this answer coming from? It is cognitive restructuring of the solution. And that is why I've marked restructuring capital R. What you're doing is, when you're stuck on a problem, you are looking at that problem usually from just one angle. Okay, A plus B gives you C. So you're only looking at that problem from one angle. You're using just one pattern or one method to solve that problem. Okay, and maybe that method is a wrong method, but you keep on using that same wrong method, and that is why you're not getting a solution. So you give up, you walk away. But later on, if you look at that problem from a different perspective, you try to experiment with a new method, or you restructure. It's like your puzzle box. You just change the structure. Now, suddenly you see the same problem from a different perspective. And that's where the solution hits. Oh my God, I never thought of that. I should have used that formula instead of this formula. I should have used that method instead of this method. Okay. And that's where that aha moment comes in. It is driven by intrinsic motivation to solve the problem. How is it that for 4 hours you were working on that mathematical sum, you were not able to solve, you give up, you walk away, you went out of the house to get some fresh air, and you got an answer. Suddenly, how did that happen? Two things happened over here. One, it looks like you gave up, but you did not really give up. Your mind was unconsciously still stuck on it. You were still trying to, solve that problem. Oh my God, how do I deal with it? How do I deal with it? What formula do I use? Okay. So you are actually still working on it. And there was this intrinsic motivation, intrinsic internal motivation, desire, that strong desire to solve the problem. I have this problem, I don't know how to solve it. There is this medical problem, I really don't know which doctor I should go to. I have this legal problem, I don't know how to come out of it. I have this financial problem, I don't know how to solve it. So there is some problem you're stuck on, but there is a strong desire to solve that problem. And because that desire to solve the problem is so strong, your mind keeps on searching for solutions. So even when you're eating, sleeping, drinking, watching TV, talking to friends, doing something else, unconsciously your mind is still working on that problem. It's like a train inside your head, which is, trying to search for its station. And finally, when that train of knowledge reaches its station, you come up with, I got it. Okay. Now, please remember, this sudden and spontaneous solution that you're getting, it is not like a gift from above. Okay. It is not like God suddenly felt sorry for you and God decided, okay, let's give her the answer just now. No, it's not that. What happens is, the information was already in your head. The knowledge, some many months ago, years ago, you had collected the knowledge. That knowledge was already there. You were just not searching for the answer in the right place. Okay. You were looking for the answer in an absolutely wrong place. I'll give you an example. Your laptop would contain so much information. so many folders and so many files. Sometimes you're searching for a particular file. You think it is in folder A. So you keep searching for it in folder A and you can't find it. And you keep trying, not realizing that you had probably kept it somewhere else in some another folder. So after a lot of struggle, you give up. And then suddenly it strikes you, oh my God, I remember it was not here, it was in that file. Of course, if it's a computer, you wouldn't take so much of trouble. You would just type search and you would get it. In your head, you're doing the same thing. Your information is stored in so many different files and folders. When you're searching for information in a different folder, you're not going to get the answer. But your mind is searching. And when it reaches the correct folder, you get that aha moment. Okay? Once again, let me take a short break. I'm going back to the chat box and replying. Okay, but so story point, I'm replying to you. But once someone develops good metacognition. Yeah, metacognition, by the way, means to be able to understand how your own mind works. Okay, meta means self. So how your mind works, that's metacognition. Okay. So this happens to all of us. Story Point has come up with a lovely insight, actually, a lovely idea, and this applies to all of us. So if you are somebody who likes to analyze your own behavior, just like you're observing people, you're also observing yourself. You're also analyzing your behavior. Okay. You ask yourself, why did I get angry? Why did I use those words? Why am I feeling jealous? Why did I feel so hurt in that situation? What was it that actually gave me pain? This is what we call as metacognition. You are trying to understand yourself. You are trying to understand your own mind, how your mind works. Now, if you are somebody who tries to analyze self a lot, not everybody does it, okay? We all do it to some extent, but some people do it more. So coming back to story point, if you are somebody who analyzes yourself constantly, you're constantly asking yourself, why did I think this way? Why did I use this word? Why was I so hurt? Why was I so happy? Then it is very possible that, this latent learning and insight learning also you're able to understand. You're able to understand that, okay, this is coming from my unconscious mind. Yes, particularly if you're a student of psychology, and particularly if you're somebody who is always trying to understand your mental processes, then it will happen faster to you. I completely agree with you. Yes. Okay, let's go ahead. Now I'm showing you these three photographs. They are real photographs of experiments conducted by Köhler and then later on other researchers. Köhler worked largely with apes and chimpanzees. His most popular chimp was Sultan. Okay, that of course does not mean all of these chimps are Sultan. Probably one of them is. But Sultan is the name of a chimpanzee, and Köhler did a lot of his original experiments with Sultan. Now, these are three different photographs, but all three photographs talk about, this kind of insightful learning. So what Köhler did was, he would put chimpanzees, sometimes single, like in the third photograph, it's a single chimpanzee, but in the first two, there are many, okay? So sometimes there were many chimpanzees, sometimes it was a single chimp kept in a cage. It was a large cage. And as you can see the cage, it is just random cage. It's a large random cage. It has a few boxes, wooden boxes, and a little sticks around and grass lying around. Just random, okay, nothing special about it. But there was a banana hanging up there. Can you see the banana in the photograph? Right up there on the string, banana. Now, of course, most of us love banana, including human beings. Most animals love bananas, okay? So, chimpanzees also love bananas. But this banana is hanging, it's tied very high up, very, very high up, where the chimp cannot reach. Now, if there is something that you want, which is tied right up, what will you do? You try to put your hand up. After that, you try to jump and catch it. But if you can't do it, what will you do? You will try to think, how can I reach there? Okay. Now, because human beings have far more advanced brain structures, for us, it will not be very difficult to solve the problem. Human beings have invented so many things around us which help us to solve our problems. Human beings have come up with furniture. Human beings have come up with stools and chairs and ladders. This is our invention. This is our technology. Okay. So if something is hanging right above me, I will not spend too much time about how will I get it. I know that I have a ladder. I know that I can climb on a table or a chair and reach. But that's because I'm a human being. I have technology with me. My brain structures are more developed. Animals have not come up with any technology. They have not invented any technology. Okay. And their brain structures are not as advanced as ours. So for them, this is a big problem. Now, same thing happened with Köhler's chimpanzees also. There was a fruit, they want it. Remember? Intrinsic motivation. There is a strong desire to solve that problem, but they cannot reach it. So what do? They try everything. They try jumping and running and everything. Then they just sit down. Okay, they just sit down, I don't know what to do. And then suddenly one of them would get up, okay, and see in the first photograph, see what has happened. Suddenly that one of the chimps got up and he realized, oh, there are so many boxes. So he started placing one box above another. And look at the second photograph. Chimps are now helping. They realize what is happening. So they all bring boxes, they put it together, they hold it. Then one of them climbs on the boxes and gets the fruit. This is insight learning. There was already the solution in their environment. The solution to the problem was available in the environment. It took them some time to realize it. Okay, realization came a little later. They realized that, oh my God, all this stuff which is lying around me, I can actually use it to solve my problem. In the third photograph that you see, there is a chimp playing with a stick. It's not really playing with a stick. What had happened was, Köhler kept many sticks around chimp, okay? And the sticks were of different sizes. And you could actually fit one stick into another. This is exactly what the chimp is doing. So initially the chimp is trying to get that banana up there and it couldn't reach. Then it took up one stick and pulled it, but tried to bring down the banana. But again, that stick is also not long enough. So after that, the chimp is, just trying to solve the problem. And then it figured out that instead of single stick, I can actually join them. I can fit one into another. I can join them. And that's what the chimp is doing over here. Chimp is joining all the sticks till it becomes a very long stick. And now it can easily reach the banana and get it. These are all classical experiments by Köhler on insight learning. And if this can happen with an animal, imagine how much insight learning can happen to us, human beings. Okay? Once again, let me go back to the chat box. And Story Point, thank you very much for this lively interaction. It's really nice to know that people on the other end are listening and thinking and, talking about it. So please continue. I would love to have this kind of conversation with my viewers and subscribers. And I would love to, talk, even argue, debate, but do it. Please interact. Thank you very much, Story Point, for making this so interactive. Okay, going back to your latest comment. I thought nobody could understand, but now I can see or maybe say, feel the problem which my brain keeps solving. It's noisy. I agree. When we are people who analyze ourselves a lot, we do get tired also faster. It's exhausting because I have to now understand people around me, but I'm also understanding myself. So yes, it can be noisy and it can be exhausting also. It also gives us less peace. People who have more metacognition, people who keep analyzing themselves more, also find it difficult to, get peace. It's very difficult to close your eyes and just shut your brain because your brain is constantly analyzing. I agree with you. Yeah. Is it because they don't have context? So I have felt this while talking, as they don't know whole context, but they realize it later. Again, this happens to all of us. Okay, like we see the famous saying that there is always another side to every story. So all of us really never are able to grasp the full 360-degree context of anything. It will take a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, which comes with age. And it will take a lot of time also, perhaps, to get a 360 view of anything. That is why when we are younger, we hastily judge people. We very hastily judge people. This is right, this is wrong. This is a good person, this is a bad person. But with age and with wisdom, we realize that there are so many layers to being good and bad. There is a gray area, okay? And there is a context for everything. A behavior which is considered good in one context may not be considered good in another context. What is acceptable today will not be acceptable tomorrow. Okay, so yes, this context comes much later, and not everybody will develop. Once again, I agree with you. Metacognition is required. You need to have that wisdom, and you also need to have that humility, that politeness in you to realize other person's point of view. Not everybody is able to understand other person's point of view. Narcissism. Narcissist people are people who are absolutely unable to understand other person's point of view. They are so filled with self, I, me, and myself. They can only think of I, my needs, my desires, what I want, what I will do, what I will say, what I will eat, what I will do. Okay, it's just me, me, me. They are incapable of understanding how my behavior is affecting others. What I say, how much it pains another person. Or maybe I should sacrifice a little for another person. They are incapable of understanding context. Okay. So yes, some people are more, can understand context better. Some people can understand less. Yeah. I hope I have reached you story point. Okay. Moving ahead. We are now moving towards the end of our lecture today. Now, in the 3-part series that we spoke, we have been constantly talking about learning, classical learning and operant learning. And today we spoke about cognitive learning. Okay. Now we saw different methods of learning. We saw different types of learning. What are the different ways in which learning can take place? Okay. But it would be wrong to conclude this series without talking about limitations of learning. Okay. Throughout the 3 episodes that we have covered in last 3 weeks, we have seen the possibility of learning, how I can learn so many things in different ways. But that doesn't mean I can learn everything. There are limitations, and that's what we are talking about. First, most important limitation is a biological limitation, biological constraint. Okay. Our bodies are designed for only certain types of behaviors. Our body itself cannot do so many things which other animals can do. My ears cannot listen to the sound waves that bats can listen. My eyes cannot see those rays which other reptiles can see. Okay. There are so many things which I can do and other animals cannot. Can you teach your pet dog to talk? No. It will understand language. It will point out. But it can still not bring out sounds because the jawline, they don't have the vocal cords like we have. They don't have the jawline. They don't have the structure. It has biological limitations. In the same way, can I run as fast as a leopard? No. My body will not allow that to happen. Okay. My vision is gone. My body will not allow that to happen. I cannot fly on my own like a bird. Not possible because I don't have wings. I cannot live underwater like a fish because my body does not have gills. So in all these cases, my learning will not help me. Okay, biological constraints will remain. Learning also depends on the complexity of the task. How difficult or easy a particular task is, how complex a particular task is. Okay, so everybody has different difficulty level. What a small child can learn, an adult cannot. What an adult can learn, a small child cannot, and so on and so forth. Again, different tasks have different difficulty levels. Some people, I'm sorry, but I'm interrupting again, but let me go back. Yeah. Lions hunt and eat, they don't feel bad because maybe, yeah. See, animals actually work a lot on instincts. They don't have too many mental processes. So They work on instincts, and that's why they don't have this moral compass of right or wrong. Okay. uh, that was story point again. Okay, now how difficult the task is. If you are finding a particular activity very difficult, then perhaps no matter how well somebody teaches you, you will never be able to learn it. Okay, like for example, me, I'm a student of social science, but I find accounts very difficult. If if somebody is trying to teach me accounts, no matter how well they teach me, I will probably never be able to learn, because for me it is very complex, very, very difficult. Okay, so how easy or difficult the task is will decide your learning. Individual differences and individual capacity, exactly what I was talking about. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. Some people are good with languages, and say, therefore they can learn languages faster. Some people are amazing with numbers, they can learn maths and accounting better. Some people are amazing with technology, they learn technology very rapidly. Some people are great with computers and software, they understand the working of software. Okay, some people are opposite, they can't. I'm good in social sciences, I'm good in languages, but I find computers and technology very difficult to understand. For me, it takes a longer time to understand a software compared to a person who is very good at it. Okay, so we are all different people. Our capacities are different, our strengths and weaknesses are different. So what one person will learn faster, other person will take a long time, and the third person will probably never be able to learn. Okay, I will never be able to sing like Lata Mangeshkar, because I just don't have the kind of natural gift that her throat had. Okay, I will probably never be able to play cricket like Sachin Tendulkar, because maybe my body just does not have the natural gift that he has. Okay, and of course, teachers matter. Who teaches you and how they teach you. Again, going back to your school time, you must have seen every year we had different teachers teaching us subjects. And you realized that same subject, you studied biology in one class and studied biology in the second class. Two different teachers taught you biology. One teacher taught you in such a way that you understood perfectly. Other teacher taught you in such a way that you found it very difficult. So instruction, the way the instructions are given to you, the way the person is teaching you matters. If you're blessed with good teachers, you will understand behavior better, learn better. If your instructors are not good, then probably it will take time. Okay, so this is it then. Thank you. Yeah, teachers, who teaches, whether you're making it more interesting, that will, yeah, yes, story point. I agree with you. And with this, we end today's session. Thank you very much, all of you. We also conclude our series on learning. So far, for all those who have missed all our earlier episodes, we started these series with various careers in psychology, and who are the different psychologists and what work they do. Then we talked on memory, theories of memory, and then later we spoke about learning and different types of learning. So we have covered all these topics so far. Continue being with us, and we will talk about various aspects of psychology, and particularly topics related to UG syllabus in the forthcoming episodes. You can find me as Dr. Zarin Sethna on any of these social media channels. On my channels, I discuss various aspects of mental health and well-being, and just so that you don't miss out any of these series, you may want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and click on the notify button so that you don't miss out, you get a reminder for our next episodes. Thank you very much for being with us and interacting and making it so interesting, and see you all in the next live session. Keep watching. Have a happy evening, everybody. And going back, sorry, story point, I got your last comment wrong. Oh, I'm so sorry, I misunderstood. So what was it? Could you please come back and tell me what that comment was about? Teach more. Sorry, what were you talking about? Story point, are you still there? Could you please elaborate on your comment? I'm sorry if I got it wrong. were you talking about the session being interesting? If that is it, then thank you for your comment. Okay, I guess we are not getting any comments. So anyway, you can continue commenting on the YouTube session. Oh, you should teach more. Thank you, dear. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I have been teaching for last 33 years. Okay, I've been an associate professor and I've taught generations of students within the college classroom. And now I'm continuing doing this so that I can reach a large number of audience. Yeah, thank you. This is very motivating. Thank you for your kind words. And have a happy evening, all of you. Stay blessed. And we'll meet again with a very interesting